Hi, I'm Joe Connolly of WCBS News Radio, New York, and I think we're about to find out if it is accurate that significant new tax credits and rebates for making green energy improvements could lead to a lot of new work and contracts and projects for small and mid-sized businesses in anything related to green energy, from EVs to putting better insulation into houses. Reid Garton knows this business inside out, business and technology. He's the president and CEO of New York State Solar, that designs and installs solar power systems and has 6 offices in the city and Long Island. And he's also a board member of the New York Solar Energy Industries Association. So, first of all, Reid, before we get to the incentives for homeowners and business owners making improvements to their homes or buildings, are these indeed a big potential opportunity for business owners to pick up projects?
Absolutely. If there's a contractor who has the expertise to do electrical work or roof installation work or design, on the engineering end or environmental end or any of the things that go into the process of taking a project through to being built for solar, yes, there's opportunity, in large part because of the new bill just passed. We have some certainty in the industry now of the incentives, that at the federal level are now running through 2034. So that's letting business owners make the decision to invest in growing operations like ours and growing their businesses around the renewable energy and efficiency industry, because we now know what the landscape is going to be like from an incentive point of view, which is one of the huge driving factors in our industry through 2034, which is very, very positive change.
To get into what I'm just calling green energy work, can, so to speak, any qualified electrician get into this work? Or, what's the trick to getting into a new niche in this industry?
Most can. You have requirements, obviously the master electrical requirements, and if you're a licensed master electrician, that covers those. That's probably the most challenging and the most time-consuming qualification to obtain. Once you have your master electrical licenses, you need home improvement licenses, which are typically much easier to obtain. There's a much lower bar as far as education and experience to obtain those. And then you need to register with the Department of Public Service, and you need to be certified by NYSERDA, the New York Authority for Renewable Energy. Those also kind of fall in line where, if you can get the master electrical, you're going to be able to line up the others with a bit of homework and a few classes. You'll get there.
So it cannot just be any electrician. You need even a renewable energy certificate.
So, for example, to do like residential solar, like we do a lot of, you need to have a home improvement license from the county you're operating in, and then within some of the towns and villages or cities, you need an additional home improvement license for that town, village, or city. For example, in Long Beach in Nassau County, you need the Nassau County license and the City of Long Beach license. In New York City, you just need the city license. So that's much more straightforward.
Reid, I call this green energy improvements. I'm sure there must be a more specific, generally used term. What is it called by you professionals in this end of things?
So, the part that I'm in, we call the solar industry.
Right.
Now there's other subsets of renewables. You have the, you mentioned in your opening, energy efficiency. That's a huge area of opportunity as well. Solar is not the only thing that we need to do to modernize the grid and clean it up and help the environment. We also need to consume less, and energy efficiency is a very, very important element of that happening. There's heat pumps, converting people off of gas and onto high efficiency modern heat pumps there's geothermal, but then of course I'm in the solar end, and argue the solar end's the best.
Right. What's your background? Are you an engineer or what?
No, I started out working in telecommunications. I owned a telecom contractor that worked with the big cable companies, like Comcast was my main client. Then I owned an internet service provider, and then I exited those businesses and got into solar.
Wow. Neil?
Yeah, so Reid, we're happy you could join us today and shed some light on some of these projects. I'm curious, what are most popular among homeowners?
Probably the most popular that we see right now is purchasing a solar system using a loan so that they have $0 out of pocket to own the system. And what I mean by that is, today, of course, everybody pays an electric bill. They're paying a Con Ed bill here in the city, or PSE&G bill on Long Island. And, a typical residential solar system before the numerous incentives is going to cost typically $30,000 to $40,000. Most people don't want to cut a check for $30,000 to $40,000, wait to get some of the incentives back, and then recoup the rest from reducing their electric bill over time. So what most of our customers do, and most in the industry, is they use one of the lenders that we're partnered with to finance the solar system, so that they're reducing their utility bill by more than the solar loan cost in most cases. And then they're applying the incentives as they receive them to that financing, so that they don't have to come out of pocket for any of the cost of going solar.
Right. And I guess that's probably the biggest hurdle here, is convincing homeowners that solar is not going to break the bank for them.
Yeah, understanding and customer education are the most challenging parts. That's why if you look across the board, not just at us, but there's some publicly traded competitors of ours like Sunrun. For us and them and other business owners that I know that are in this space, customer acquisition is typically the highest cost. That's the most challenging part of the business, and it's the most expensive part, because while solar has decades of track record now with the panels performing, with the technology working, it hasn't been available at a large scale to homeowners for that long in the scheme of things. We've been buying electricity from the utility for over 100 years. You've only really been able to own a solar system for 10 to 20. So your typical homeowner doesn't have a lot of experience with solar, and they've never purchased a solar system, and they don't understand all of the ins and outs of going solar. So that's one of the most challenging parts of the business, is walking people through what are the incentives, how much is it going to produce, why are we very sure it's going to produce that, how are you going to save money by doing this, and how much are you going to save over time. And there's a lot of moving parts with that to help them understand, so that they can make the right decision for their bank account at the end of the day.
Right. I wonder, Reid, are small businesses, small and mid-sized businesses favored by New York State for these projects?
I wouldn't say so, no. At the federal level, there are there's two tax credits. There's the Section 25 tax credit, which is for residential, and the Section 48, which is for businesses. The Section 48 tax credit at the federal level does favor businesses slightly. When they passed the Inflation Reduction Act a few months ago, they included several additional incentives for businesses that homeowners did not receive. But at the state level, it's pretty balanced, if not favoring homeowners. Here in New York State, a homeowner purchasing a solar system can receive a state tax credit equal to 25% of the cost of their solar system, capped at $5,000, whereas businesses don't receive a state tax credit for purchasing a solar system.
Reid, is there any place homeowners or business owners can get an understandable fairly concise rundown of all of these incentives that you've started referencing?
Typically the solar company that you're working with.
Right.
You know, 'cause you're talking about incentives from the federal government, which the IRS doesn't do a great job of explaining much of anything. You're talking about incentives from the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance. Then you're talking about incentives from NYSERDA. Then you're talking about some utility incentives. And then in New York City, you're talking about a property tax abatement. So when you have all of these parts coming from different levels and areas of government, there's no like single resource that I've seen that lays it all out well, besides typically a solar company like us.
Yeah, and solar power is definitely one of these industries that, it should be said, do not try this at home. Do not even try understanding the incentives at home. It must be, you must have to find very patient salespeople to go out and explain some of these things, Reid, not just once, but 2 and 3 times maybe. How do you find people to do that?
A lot of work. We have a 5-person in-house recruiting team, and it's a lot of work to find salespeople that can understand the incentives and the finances and the product well enough to effectively relay it to our customers and answer all of their questions so that they can make an informed decision. And it's not a short process either. You know, we're not sending a guy in to sit down at the kitchen table and sign a contract a half an hour later. Our typical customers meeting with our salesperson 2 to 3 times. We're going out, we're inspecting their roof, we're measuring their roof to verify how everything's going to fit. We're making sure that the roof we're putting it on is going to last, you know, for roughly the life of the solar system, so they don't get halfway through and have to pull it off and put it back on, because that would be an additional expense. And you know, it's better to just replace the roof at the beginning and roll it into the project if it's going to need to be done. So there's a lot of moving parts there, and it's, you know, it's something you want to do not slowly, but methodically, and make sure you've addressed everything with the customer so that they understand what they're getting and why and how it's going to be of a benefit to them.
I've heard that some companies are hiring people who are leaving teaching as salespeople. And boy, it strikes me like your product might be one that it would take a teacher to explain.
I think teachers could be very successful working for us and explaining everything. I think they definitely have the skills to understand it and relay it to others. So I know our recruiting team loves interviewing teachers and anyone coming out of that field.
Yeah, I bet. Neil.
Yeah. So Reid, tell us about New York State Solar Energy Industry Association. Are you representing businesses? Are you doing mainly education?
No, so it's a trade association. So it represents its member companies, which include mine, and are across the spectrum of not just the companies installing it, but you know, we have manufacturers that are members. We have law firms and accounting firms that provide services to both our customers and us that are members. We have subcontractors like roofers who are looking to do work on solar projects that are members. You know, of course, the solar companies ourselves, financiers that finance solar projects and are involved in with leases, the tax equity sales. You know, there's a lot of businesses that revolve around the industry, not just the companies like us putting the panels up on the roof. And you know, we have a pretty diverse membership across both the solar companies themselves and the other companies that are involved in the ecosystem.
And I'll be like a customer and just ask my last question. What was that incentive that you said lasted all the way till 2034 or something? What was that one again?
The federal investment tax credit. So that is typically the largest incentive that a customer receives, and it's equal to 30% of the cost of the solar system. So that takes a nice chunk out of going solar.
And you get that 30% back in tax credits or tax deductions, or just what?
It's a credit. It's a tax credit.
Over all those years.
So you receive the credit in the year in which your solar system is placed into operation. So, if you purchased a solar system that resulted in a $10,000 credit with the IRS, you would claim that credit in the year in which the system is placed into operation. If you had $10,000 in tax liability, with your total tax worked out to $10,000, and you paid in that $10,000 throughout the year, so you didn't owe, you would actually be able to receive that money back from the IRS. If you owed, then it could be applied towards what's owed. Your CPA works that out with you. If you don't have enough tax liability to claim the credit in 1 year, then it can carry forward into future years, and you can receive part this year, part next year, part the year after, until you've received the full credit back.
Thank you, Reid, for starting our understanding of this. As you say, this is not a 20 or 30-minute quick meeting, but you got us on the road to understanding this, and thank you.
Happy to help.